Myself Avishri, I'm a fourth year student and I'm pursuing my BNIS, that is Bachelor's in Naturopathy and Yogic Sciences from S. Vyasa University. So in this series of lecture, we will deal with the respiratory system. So today the first chapter is the physiological anatomy of the respiratory tract. Now before going to the introduction, I would like to tell you that the fetal lungs are dysfunctional. That is, the lungs become functional only when we are born, and before that the respiration occurs through the placenta. That is, the maternal oxygen crosses the placenta and goes to the baby, and the carbon dioxide crosses the placenta and goes to the mother's blood, and then it gets filtered and again it comes back. So the respiratory rate differs from age to age. That is, in children it is higher, that is 60 per minute, and as we age the respiratory rate decreases. So in adults it is approximately 12 cycles per minute. So in the introduction we'll see what is respiration. Respiration is nothing but the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide with the environment. So what are the things we'll be dealing is in introduction we will be seeing the types of respiration and the phases of respiration. Now what are the types of respiration? The types of respiration are internal and external, and the phases are inspiration and expiration. So external respiration happens from the alveoli to the blood, or from blood to the alveoli, and the internal respiration happens at the tissue level, that is from blood to the tissue. So what are the phases? Inspiration and expiration. What is inspiration? Inspiration is nothing but taking in of oxygen, and expiration is nothing but exhaling or taking out of carbon dioxide. So what are the types? Internal, external. Internal is nothing but the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide with the tissue and the blood, and external is the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen with the alveoli and the blood. Phases: inspiration is taking in of oxygen, expiration is taking out of carbon dioxide. Now we will deal with the functional anatomy of respiratory tract. In functional anatomy of the respiratory tract, we will see the parts which are involved in the respiration. So what are the parts? They are nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. You can see here, where is the nose? This is the portion that is your nose. Your nose has three parts, that is, first is a nasal cavity. This is your nasal cavity. Next is your nasal vestibule. This is your nasal vestibule. And third one is your nasal concha. All these things you will be learning in your anatomy. So here is just an overview. Your nose has three parts: the nasal cavity, the nasal concha, and the nasal vestibule. So nasal vestibule is nothing but the opening of the nasal cavity to the outside environment through which we inhale. Now larynx. Larynx is also known as your voice box. Okay. Larynx is your voice box. So larynx is present somewhere here. Now vocal cord. This is your vocal cord. Vocal cord are nothing but these are the structures through which the sounds are produced. They vibrate, and so the sounds are produced. This is your trachea. These are concentric rings which are present in the trachea. This is your right lung. This is your left lung. This is your diaphragm, and this is your pharynx. Now the pharynx has some parts, the oropharynx and the nasopharynx. Okay, then this is your oral cavity, the oral or the buccal cavity. As you can see, this is your tongue, this is the esophagus, and what are the main bronchi? So the trachea bifurcates into two main bronchi, and these are your main bronchi. So trachea has a part here. This is the bifurcation you can see here. This is your carina. Okay, this thing is known as carina. So the main bronchi further divides into lower bronchi. So this is your lower bronchi. Now the lower bronchi further divides into primary, secondary, tertiary. We will deal with it later. So we are friendly now with the basic structure involved in the respiratory tract. These are your nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and the lungs. Now we will deal with separate little units. Like first one is your pleura. Pleura, intrapleural space or cavity, intrapleural fluid, and tracheobronchial tree. Okay, so these are the things we'll be dealing with here. Pleura is nothing but the double bilayered membranous structure covering our lungs is your pleura. What is pleura? It is a bilayered structure covering our lungs. It is called pleura. So the two layers of the pleura are visceral and parietal. What is visceral? Visceral is a layer which is connected with the lungs, and parietal is a layer which is connected with the thorax. So visceral, when you see visceral, it has viscera. So viscera is nothing but your organ. So whatever the thing which is connected with your viscera is your visceral, and parietal means outside. So it is connected with the thorax. Suppose this is a lung. It has two layers. So the inner one will be your visceral and the outer one will be your parietal. Okay, this one will be close to your lungs, visceral one, and parietal will be close to your thorax. Now what is interpleural space? So this space, that is the space between the parietal and the visceral pleura, is nothing but your interpleural space or interpleural cavity. Okay, so what is interpleural cavity? Is the space between the two pleuras, that is the visceral and the parietal pleura. Now interpleural fluid, its fluid is nothing but the fluid which is present in our interpleural cavity. Okay, so this fluid has two functions. One is a lubricant, another is one to maintain the intrapleural pressure. So what is a lubricant? Lubricant is nothing but which removes the friction between two surfaces. So this interpleural fluid acts as a lubricant between the two layers of pleura. That is, whenever our lung expands and contracts, so it prevents the friction between the two layers and enables the action to happen smoothly. What is intrapleural pressure? this is the pressure which is created when we respire. So to maintain this pressure, this fluid is very necessary. Now we'll see some of the conditions which are abnormal conditions, okay, of the intrapleural fluid. Means there is some pathology of the pleural fluid. So there are three things. One is hydrothorax, another one is pneumothorax, another one is pyothorax. What are these? Hydro is water, you know. So what is hydrothorax? It will be the collection of fluid in your thoracic cavity. What is pneumothorax? Pneumo is nothing but air, so it is a collection of air in your thoracic cavity. What is pyo? Pyo means pus. So it is the accumulation of pus in your thoracic cavity. So these are the abnormal conditions which are seen in your seen due to the intrapleural fluid. Now tracheobronchial tree, last part of our respiratory tract is your tracheobronchial tree. This is nothing but trachea plus bronchi. So tracheobronchial tree. Now these are few components. So what are the components of a tracheobronchial tree are? First, as you can see, the trachea. The trachea divides into bronchi. Okay, the trachea divides into bronchi, two main bronchi. Now these bronchi divides into primary bronchi. Now this primary bronchi divides into secondary bronchi, and it divides into tertiary bronchi. It divides into terminal bronchi, and it further divides into respiratory bronchi. So as you can see here, the trachea is divided into two main bronchi. These are further divided into primary bronchi. These again divides into secondary, then tertiary, then finally the terminal portion you can see here. This is your terminal bronchi. Then it further divides into respiratory bronchi. So the last unit of the tracheobronchial tree is your respiratory bronchi. So now there's a question for you. You can answer in the chat box in the comment section. So what is the surfactant that we see here? The lubricant that we saw. So can you name the lubricant present in the lungs? This is a question. Okay, I hope you can answer this. We'll see the upper and lower respiratory tract. There are two divisions of the respiratory tract, that is upper and the lower. So the upper respiratory tract consists of, as we already saw, the nose, the pharynx, larynx, okay, the mouth. These are the components. Nose has your nasal cavity, nasal concha, nasal vestibule. Pharynx is divided into oropharynx, nasopharynx. Larynx has your vocal cords, okay. Then mouth has your mouth, that is your oral cavity, okay. Now the lower portion is where the larynx ends, okay. So it is your trachea, bronchi, and your lungs, okay. Trachea, bronchi, and the lungs, these consist in our lower respiratory tract. Now we will see what is respiratory unit. So what is respiratory unit? Respiratory unit is nothing but the main functional and structural unit where the actual respiration process happens. That is, What is respiratory unit? It is a main structural and functional unit where the actual respiratory process happens. The actual exchange of gases happens. So it consists of, it starts from where the tracheobronchial tree ends. So it ended in your respiratory bronchial. So it starts from the respiratory bronchial. So respiratory bronchial divides into alveolar ducts. It further divides into alveolar sacs. Then it further divides into antrum. And then your alveoli. Okay. So the respiratory bronchial divides into alveolar duct into alveolar sac into antrum, then your alveoli. So we'll see what is that. Suppose this is your respiratory bronchial. It further divides into respiratory bronchial, divides into alveolar duct. Now it has alveolar sacs. What is alveolar sac? It is a sac-like structure. Okay, sac means something like pouch. This is your alveolar sac. Now the sac is antrum. Antrum is nothing but a cavity. This cavity is known as your antrum. Now what is alveoli? Alveoli is nothing but the small sac-like structure present in your antrum is your alveoli. These are the smallest structure in your alveolar sac. It is the smallest structure of the respiratory membrane, and this is the actual place where your respiration happens. That is exchange of carbon dioxide and the oxygen takes place at this alveolar level. Now there are two types of alveoli, or the alveolar cells. Now these alveolar cells are also known as pneumocytes. So these are of two types, type 1 and type 2. What are the type 1 and type 2 cells? Type 1 cells are nothing but the squamous epithelium cells. Okay, type 1 are squamous epithelium, type 2 are cuboidal epithelium. Type 1 are 90%, the rest 10% is your type 2. Now what is the function of type 1 and type 2? Type 1 is mainly responsible for the exchange of gases, and type 2 is secretes your lubricant fluid. Okay. So what are the alveolar cells or the pneumocytes? There are two types, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is squamous epithelium, type 2 is cuboidal cells. Type 1 are 90%, type 2 are only 10%. The main exchange of gases happens with the type 1 cells, and the type 2 cells secrete the lubricant fluid or your surfactant. Okay. So now I have a question. You have to search the amount of capillary and the alveolar carbon dioxide and oxygen content. Okay, what you have searched is you have to tell me the amount of carbon dioxide and oxygen present in the alveolar and the capillary space. So you can answer in the comment section, and let's see how many of you get it correct. Now we will deal with the non-respiratory functions of the respiratory tract. So before going to the non-respiratory functions, we will see what is respiratory membrane. Now respiratory membrane is nothing but the membrane which is present between alveoli and capillary. So respiratory membrane consists of your alveolar membrane and your capillary membrane. So it looks something like this. This is your alveoli. Okay, this is your one alveoli. Now these alveoli are connected to the capillaries. This is your alveoli. This is your capillary. Okay, and these are the basement membrane. The basement membrane which is present between these two structures. Okay. So what happens? The oxygen which is present here is transferred into the capillary, and the carbon dioxide which is present in the capillary is transferred to the alveoli and is taken out of the body. And the oxygen which is present here is transferred to the capillary for your metabolic functions. So this is what is known as your respiratory membrane. That is the membrane which consists of alveolar membrane, the capillary membrane, and the basement membrane between them. Now we will deal with the non-respiratory functions of the. We will deal with the non-respiratory functions of the respiratory tract. Okay. So the first four functions are olfaction, vocalization, prevention of dust particles, and defense mechanism. Olfaction. What is olfaction? Olfaction is nothing but the process of sensing of smell of the outside environment. Okay, so olfaction happens by the olfactory receptors present in our nose, and these olfactory receptors take the sensation, then sends to olfactory nerves to our brain, and these brain send signals back as a sensation of smell. So what is the receptor? It is your olfactory receptors. Okay. So olfaction happens to the olfactory receptors present in our nose, and these olfactory receptors sends the olfaction sensation and sends to our brain. Okay, now vocalization. What is vocalization? It is nothing but the speech, the process of forming of speech. It happens via the vocal cords or the larynx or the voice box. Okay, so it happens through the larynx. What happens whenever we try to speak? There's the air flows through the vocal cords, and the vocal cords vibrate and thus produce sound. Now, the prevention of dust particles. So, instead of the main function, that is respiration, we have these functions, that is olfaction, the sense of smell, vocalization, production of sound, and prevention of dust particles. So, to prevent the entry of dust particles which might irritate our inner side of the body, so there are few mechanisms through which the dust particles are prevented to go inside, and these are, first of all, there is the presence of hairs. Yes, hairs are present in our nasal cavity. So whenever any irritant particles comes, these hairs prevent it through the ciliary motion to go further. Next is your mucus. Now, even if some of the particles escape, the mucus will trap it and prevent its entry. Third one is your macrophages. So what these macrophages do, they are present in our nasal cavity, nasal passage, your pharynx, your respiratory tract. So what they will do, they will engulf the dust particles and destroy it through phagocytic action. And lastly, there is your cough or sneeze reflex. Okay. Now, even if some of the particles will can reach your trachea, are able to reach your trachea, then through these reflexes, cough and sneeze reflexes, they are taken out of the body. There's a different mechanism behind it. We will deal with it later. So these are the mechanisms involved in the prevention of dust particles, that is through hair cells, mucus, the macrophages, and the cough and sneeze reflex. Now we will see the defense mechanism. So the defense mechanism, we have few cells. First one is your lungs' own defenses. Then your mast cells, leukocytes, macrophages, natural killer cells, and your dendritic cells. Now, what are the lung zone defense mechanisms? So, it has two proteins which are called as defensins and cathelicidins. Okay, what are these? So, what are these? Defensins and cathelicidins. These are nothing but the protein. IN is anything, IN is your protein. So, these are the protein defenses which are present in your respiratory tract. Okay, these are our lungs' own defenses. Okay, these are present in your lungs. Now, what is mast cells? So, mast cells secrete few of the defenses, few of proteins like serotonin, heparin, histamine, and other hydrolytic enzymes. So these mast cells are activated mainly when there is an allergy. Okay, whenever there is an allergen which enters in our body, these mast cells produces a hypersensitivity reaction. Okay, so these mast cells secrete these all these enzymes: serotonin, heparin, histamine, hydrolytic enzymes, and digest the foreign body particle. Now, what does leukocyte do? These leukocytes are mainly two main cells: neutrophils and your lymphocytes. Okay. So what does neutrophils do? They kill the foreign particles. Neutrophils kill the foreign particles, and lymphocyte develop immunity against it. Okay. Neutrophils kill the particles, and the lymphocyte develop immunity against this. Now, what does macrophages do? Macrophages are nothing but they act as the scavengers of the cell. They also secrete some of the enzymes like interleukins, tumor necrosis factor, etc. And these scavenge the cells. Okay. Now, NK cells, these are nothing but the natural killer cells. Natural killer cells. Okay. These also digest the foreign body particles. Dendritic cell, these act as same like your mast cells. Okay. Dendritic cells act like the mast cells, so they also help in that scavenging action. So what are the defense mechanisms we saw? These are your lung zone defense mechanisms, that is defenses and cathelicidin. Mast cells secrete serotonin, heparin, histamines, hydrolytic enzymes which act as scavenger. The leukocytes of two types, neutrophils and the lymphocyte. Neutrophils kill the foreign body particles, and lymphocyte develops immunity against it. Macrophages are nothing but the scavenging functions. They also secrete interleukins, tumor necrosis factor. NK cells are nothing but the natural killer cells. They also kill the bacteria. And dendritic cells, they also act as the mast cells. That is, helps in the phagocytic actions. Now, we'll see the other functions of the respiratory tract. So the other functions are maintenance of water balance, maintenance of heat balance, and maintenance of acid base balance. Okay. So water balance, how it is done is whenever we respire, there is some amount of moisture or water which is given out of our body. Okay, so this adjusts the balance of water in our body. Same like water heat is also given out whenever we respire. So this also maintains the balance in the heat. So these acts together, the water and the heat loss is maintained by our respiratory tract. Now acid-base balance. Acid-base balance, it regulates the carbon dioxide content. What it does, it regulates the carbon dioxide content in the blood. So in blood, the carbon dioxide mixes with the water. It forms carbonic acid, H2CO3. This carbonic acid breaks into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion. Okay. Now, in lungs, what happens? These ions, these again combine and form carbonic acid. Now, these carbonic acid again breaks down into carbon dioxide and water, and this carbon dioxide is taken outside from the respiratory tract to the outside environment. Okay. So, what happens in blood? That the carbon dioxide mixes with water, form carbonic acid, and breaks down into carbonate, bicarbonate, and hydrogen ion. And in the lungs, these bicarbonate and hydrogen ion crosses the respiratory membrane, goes to the lungs, and these combine into bicarbonic acid. And these carbonic acid break down into carbon dioxide and water, and this carbon dioxide is taken from the lungs to the outside environment and is excreted out. So these processes maintain the balance of acid and base in our body. As you can see, this H plus is an acid, bicarbonate is a base. So the balance between these is maintained in our blood via respiratory tract. And also there is an elimination of carbon dioxide happening in the lungs. So the carbon dioxide is maintained. Now what happens during metabolic activities? When metabolic activities increases, like whenever there is an increase in metabolic activities, what happens? There is an excess of carbon dioxide in the blood, okay, and there is an increase of hydrogen ion in the blood, and the pH will also decrease. So whenever there is an increase of metabolic activities, the carbon dioxide content in the blood increases. Naturally, the carbon dioxide, when the content will increase, the hydrogen ion will also increase, as it will more hydrogen ion will be produced by the breaking down of carbon dioxide. So naturally, what happens if the hydrogen ion will increase, the pH will decreases more. So what happens? These send a signal to our carotid sinus and aortic sinus in the body. Okay, so these carotid and aortic sinus are stimulated. Now what they do, they causes hyperventilation, and thus carbon dioxide is taken out. So these carotid sinus and aortic sinus, they act as baroreceptors, that is, they sense the carbon dioxide, the gases content in our blood. So whenever the carbon dioxide increases, these sinus get stimulated. These causes hyperventilation. What is hyperventilation? Is nothing but the respiratory process deepens and thus eliminates the carbon dioxide from the body and maintains the carbon dioxide content in the blood. So I hope you understood this. So what will happen? That if carbon dioxide is gone, then the pH will be normalized. Okay. So this is how it is maintained. Now we'll see the other functions. So what are the other functions? Other one is your anticoagulant function. Your ACE secretion, and lastly your synthesis of hormones. Okay, so anticoagulant function. What is anticoagulant? Coagulation is nothing but the aggregation of platelets to stop the bleeding. What is coagulation? Coagulation is the aggregation of the platelets to stop bleeding. We have seen that whenever there is a cut, there is a thick brownish layer is formed. So that is nothing but your platelets or the clot which is formed. So this, what these respiratory tract do is that it prevent that from happening. That is, it prevents it prevents clotting. It acts as an anti-clotting factor. Okay, so it secretes a substance known as heparin. Okay, this heparin prevents the clotting in our body. Now, what is ACE? ACE is angiotensin converting enzyme. Okay, ACE is angiotensin converting enzyme. Where it is helpful is that it helps in the conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. Okay, this is a mechanism which is very useful for regulation of BP, blood pressure. So angiotensin converting enzyme helps in conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, and this angiotensin 2 helps in maintaining your blood pressure. Now, synthesis of hormones, our last function. What are the hormones which are synthesized by your respiratory tract? These are prostaglandins, your PGs, acetylcholine, and serotonin. The hormones prostaglandins, acetylcholine, serotonin, all these helps in a way to maintain our BP or the blood pressure. Prostaglandins are nothing but they are also useful in the in various cellular reactions. Okay, acetylcholine this mainly acts as a neurotransmitters. Okay, serotonin is also it's very helpful in the maintenance of sleep-wake cycle. So, but they overall help in the maintenance of BP. So, last function is the synthesis of hormones. So, once again, we'll see what are the functions. First is the olfaction, the vocalization, prevention of dust particles, defense mechanism, maintenance of water balance, maintenance of temperature balance or the heat balance, maintenance of acid-base balance, then your anticoagulant functions, ACE secretion, and lastly your synthesis of hormones. Okay. So, before going to the last topic, that is your respiratory reflex, I'll ask, what are APCs? Okay. What are APCs? So I'll just tell the full form. These are antigen presenting cells. Now you have to tell me the function of APCs. You can comment down in the comment box. So what are the ABCs, and of all the defense mechanism what we saw, which one acts as an APC? That you have to tell me. I hope you will find it, or no, then I'll tell in the next task. So we'll see now with the respiratory protective reflexes. So there are mainly three respiratory protective reflexes. These are cough, sneeze, and deglutition. Okay. What are respiratory protective reflexes? These are nothing but the protective reflexes or protective mechanisms which are helpful in preventing of dust particles or any foreign objects to harm our body. So these mechanisms come into play to do so. Now what is cough? Cough is nothing but the forced expiration which expels out the foreign objects. Okay. So what it does is when any irritant object comes into our body, it expels it out. So what are the causes of cough? It can be any irritant particle, okay, any dust particles falling in any allergen. Then your any pulmonary causes like COPD. COPD is nothing but it is a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a respiratory condition. Any cardiac causes like congestive cardiac failure. Okay, then any tumors. So any tumors which are pressing our larynx, pharynx, or our thorax, and these can cause a cough reflex. So now we'll see the mechanism. So it forms a reflex pathway. Reflex pathway or reflex arc is nothing but it has a receptor, higher center, and an effector. Okay, so what is a receptor, a higher center, and your effector? Okay, this is your reflex arc. So what is the receptors here? So what is the function of receptor mean first? Receptors is nothing but it sends the irritant particle, or it sends there's anything abnormal happening there. Then it through some nerves it sends the signal to the higher center. Now these higher centers send the signal back, the response back to the effector, and these effector now work. Okay. So I hope you got some idea. So what is cough reflex? So what are the receptors in cough reflex? These are the receptors that is present in your nose. Okay, the nose, the pharynx, the larynx. These are the receptors which are present, which are responsible for the cough reflex. Now, the nerve fibers which are responsible are vagus, phrenic, glossopharyngeal, trigeminal. So these are the nerves which are responsible for transmitting the sensation to the higher center. Now the higher center is your medulla oblongata. Okay. Now what are the efferent fibers? These efferent fibers are your vagus and your phrenic nerves. Okay. So the effectors are, that is the actual site where these response will happen. This is your primary and accessory muscles of respiratory tract. So what are the effectors? It is your primary and accessory muscles of the respiratory tract. So what happens whenever there is an irritant object, it stimulates the receptors present in our respiratory system. These travels to the these nerves and reaches the medulla oblongata. These medulla oblongata then sends impulses of cough through these vagus and phrenic nerve, and then these impulses act at the primary and accessory muscles. So this is what happens in our cough reflex. Now we'll see the sneeze reflex. So before going to the sneeze reflex, the main difference we see is that in cough reflex there is an forced expiration. Okay, there is a forced expiration. In sneeze also there is a forced expiration. Then there is deep inspiration. Here also there is a deep inspiration, but in cough there is a closed glottis. Okay, the glottis here is closed, but in sneezing there is an open glottis. There is an open glottis. So this is the main difference which you will see between cough and sneeze reflexes. What is sneeze? Sneeze is nothing but the process that happens when there is any irritant particles in our respiratory tract, and our body sends a response to eliminate it. Okay, so what are the causes? So it can be due to any irritant, as we've seen in the cough reflex. There can be any fluid accumulation. Okay, any fluid accumulation in the nasal cavity, and lastly, there can be any obstruction. Okay, any obstruction in any part of the respiratory tract can cause this nasal reflex. Now, what is the mechanism through this? So it also works through a reflex path. Okay, so there is a receptor, higher center, and effector. There are some nerves involved. So, what are the receptors? These receptors are olfactory receptors. These olfactory receptors are present in our nose, nasal cavity, the paranasal sinuses. Okay. Now, what are the nerves? These nerves are trigeminal nerve. Okay. The trigeminal nerve is involved, and the highest center is seen your medulla oblongata. Now, the medulla oblongata has few centers in it. These are your reticular formation. The reticular formation, the nucleus solitarius. Okay, and trigeminal nucleus. So these are the nucleus which are present in the medulla oblongata, the highest center of the brain. So now these signals travel to the nerves of trigeminal nerve and your vagus nerve. So what are the nerves involved are trigeminal, vagus, olfactory and glossopharyngeal. What are the effectors? These are your pharyngeal and your respiratory muscles. So how this happens is whenever there is an irritant present in our olfactory pathway, it sends an impulse to the trigeminal nerve. It reaches our medulla oblongata where it reaches the various nucleus. Now these transmit to our trigeminal nerve, vagus, olfactory, glossopharyngeal nerve through their effector, that is your respiratory muscles, your pharyngeal muscles and your laryngeal muscles, and here's how the sneezing reflex is completed. Now we'll see the last topic of our today's discussion. That is nothing but your swallowing. Swallowing but is nothing but deglutition. So what is deglutition? Deglutition is swallowing. Now here we have two terms, apnea and deglutition. Apnea. Okay. What is apnea? Apnea is nothing but the cessation of breathing. Okay, whenever breath stops, we call it as apnea. What is deglutition apnea? Deglutition apnea is nothing whenever we swallow. There is a temporary or momentarily cessation of breathing while swallowing, so we call it deglutition apnea. So if it doesn't happen, what will happen? The food will go into our respiratory tract and it may cause problems. Okay, so deglutition apnea is necessary. So what happens in deglutition apnea is whenever we take food particles, epiglottis which is present here, it closes the epiglottis which is present here closes the glottis, and thus these food particles does not enter our respiratory tract and instead goes to our esophagus. Okay, so deglutition, it happens in the second stage of deglutition. And so this deglutition apnea occurs during the second stage of deglutition. So the second stage or the pharyngeal stage. Okay. So it happens during the second stage of the pharyngeal stage of deglutition. So now you understood what is deglutition reflex, that whenever we eat food, the epiglottis gets closed and prevent the entry of the particle in our respiratory tract and prevent further problem. So here's my question again, that what are the phases of deglutition? You have to tell me what are the phases of deglutition in our the comment box, and I hope you will able to answer. So this is our end of discussion. Then we will see in the next chapter, that is the pulmonary circulation, in our next class. Till then, bye and take care.